We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hi, it's Martha Stewart. You know, I spend a lot of time thinking about dirt. At 3 a.m., at all hours of the day, really. What people don't know is that not all dirt is the same. You need dirt with the right kind of nutrients. New Miracle Grow organic raised bed and garden soil is so dense, so full of nutrient-rich, high-quality ingredients. Miracle Grow is simply the best.
Norman, we need to pause this surgery.
What, doctor?
Because Xfinity Mobile just got even better. Now you're automatically connected to Wi-Fi speeds up to a gig while you're on the go. Plus, existing Xfinity customers can buy one unlimited line and get one free for a year.
Visit XfinityMobile.com to learn more. Offer ends 6/21. Restrictions apply. Existing Xfinity Internet service and 2 new unlimited lines required. Reduced speeds after 30 gigabytes of usage per line. Data thresholds may vary. Actual Wi-Fi speeds vary, not guaranteed.
It is the Doomsday podcast, back together again, mandatory minicamp, veterans minicamp for the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm here so I don't get fined.
Ed Werder on the scene today, and we've got quite a few interviews for you, including an exclusive one-on-one that we landed with Travis Frederick. And Ed, I think folks are going to really enjoy this because I thought Travis opened up about a lot of things related to his whole condition, and I think it's going to be. I think it's kind of surprising to me. Even now, he still seems a little bit reserved about kind of his future.
Well, he went into great detail about the disease that he suffered and the dramatic consequences of that. His good fortune to have it diagnosed early on. But for a center to not be able to feel the football in his hands, for him not to be able to feel his feet at certain times, and like you said, we asked him a couple different times, are you convinced that you'll play again to the level you've played at previously for the Cowboys this season? He said he didn't have any doubts, but he also doesn't have confirmation, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his mind, it's a question until he proves it to himself on the football field, and he said that won't happen until training camp.
All right, and Ed, you had the courage, the wisdom to be there for the actual practice, and you watched that. I was doing my radio show, another gig that I have, but you were kind of right there on the scene. Anything grab your attention up there? You were sitting in the stands at the Ford Center?
I took advantage of my relative unemployment. Is that what you're saying? For the benefit of the Doomsday podcast?
It's one of the great unemployments in America.
Yeah, well, the first thing that struck me is that unlike last year when we were out there, the mini camp was not held outdoors because, as it turns out, at the Star, you quickly learn that while Jerry Jones has built a state-of-the-art facility, it has everything but an available grass practice field. So the team had to work inside the Ford Center each of these 3 days, and this is obviously the last thing they're going to do on the field before they report to training camp. I would say a couple different things struck me, especially as it pertains to the offense, and the first of those is that we know that in the offseason they went out and hired John Kitna to be the quarterback's coach. And Kitna is regarded as a coach who really emphasizes proper throwing mechanics, proper footwork. And I think that's been a deficiency in Dak's game. If you could say anything bad about a guy who was drafted as a developmental quarterback and then went on to start every game for first three seasons of his career, displacing a guy who's probably going to be in the Ring of Honor, Tony Romo, I think it would be that. And I think this is going to improve his accuracy. Dak's reputation has been he's a guy who's a gamer, but doesn't always impress in practice. I think he's throwing the ball very impressively in practice. And when you talk to his teammates, they'll talk about, as Jason Witten did, he's throwing it to them as they come out of their break. The ball is there. It's accurate. It's got velocity, location. So I would say that's the first thing that struck me. And then I think the other curiosity, wrapping this up, because it's only supposed to be 2 minutes long, and we're probably already at 5 minutes. But
okay.
I think the other thing is kind of the ingenuity, if that's what you can call it, with Kellen Moore now involved as the offensive coordinator, designing plays. I saw things that we don't associate with the Cowboys that other teams do very commonly, such as bunching receivers. I saw the Cowboys put Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb on the same side in a very tight formation, and then kind of run a wheel route out of that for a deep completion to Randall Cobb.
Is that legal for the Cowboys to
It
do
hasn't
that?
been in the past. It has been something that they've avoided challenging the officials on because of the replay system, I believe. But I think replay's now been changed, and it does allow these sorts of formations. So the Cowboys seem intent on at least experimenting with them during practice.
Well, we've got some big time interviews, and in fact, that Travis Frederick one, excited to share that with you. And it is time for the Doomsday podcast. Frito, play the music, sir. And it is the Doomsday Podcast, live from Frito Nation Productions out here in far North Dallas.
Very far.
Yes, and Ed Werder on the scene today. We got Travis Frederick coming up.
You were also on the scene.
Yes, but I'm saying you're on the scene with me right now. We have been to Cowboys minicamp. We have conquered Cowboys minicamp. Ed, you came all the way back from the gorgeous climate. And by the way, pretty nice temperatures here. You avoided some of that nastiness of Sunday. Boy, we were wiped out. A lot of us in Dallas and Richardson and all the areas got to hit pretty hard up here in Allen, where Frito is. But we have survived, and it is time to discuss Cowboys minicamp. I walked in yesterday, Ed, and boy, our reputation preceded us. I walk into the minicamp. Jason Witten greeted
TV
me.
guy?
A very, very animated Jason Witten. Did I say Gary?
No, I said, the TV guy?
That's right, the TV guy. He's back on the scene. And boy, he hasn't missed a beat. You know, and I think one of the things that really struck me right off the bat, there was a little bit of discussion on, hey, maybe he'll only play like 25 snaps this season. He scoffs at that. He's having a fun time laughing about that because at age 36, 37, whatever he is, I think he's 37 now, he's going to be out there every single chance he gets. They'll give him some off days in training camp, and especially in these OTAs and this mini camp. He'll go get some rest before camp, but Ed, he looks better to me, honestly, from a physical standpoint. You visited with him a little bit today
Toupee
as
aside.
well. What's that?
Toupee aside.
Well, the
He's now
toupee.
sporting the bald head.
Yeah, he's just embraced. I don't know if it was a toupee as much as I actually think he's admitted that they actually did some coloring work on him. They kind of used some kind of pencil to kind of color in some hair. But this guy is ready. This guy's ready to go, and so I don't think there's going to be a lot of we're only going to play him 20 snaps this season.
Well, I think one of the things that has defined Jason Witten's career with the Cowboys is, he's played more games than anybody has ever worn the uniform, is his not reluctance to come off the field, but refusal to come off the field. There have been times in the past where Jason Garrett, the coaching staff, wanted him off the field, and he refused orders to come off the field. He believes that strongly in his ability to make a difference offensively. And in this case, I don't think there's anybody who's a real threat to him in terms of a young guy, that they're developing who can't suffer losing playing time for Jason Witten's presence. Now, I still think there are people even in the organization or who have recently left the organization who still question his ability to have any kind of significant run after the catch. He had a career low in that statistic in his final season in 2017. And to capture the edge in the run game, which is critically important. And I still think he'll do that better than anybody else they have at the tight end position. And all of that's going to play into how often he's on the field versus being on the sideline. I know this. I know in 2017, what until now was Jason Witten's last season as a football player in the NFL, one tight end in the entire league played 1,000 snaps, and it was Jason Witten. So I, like you, will be shocked given how much value Jason Garrett places and how much trust he has in Jason Witten if they're willing to take him off the field in any significant number. But my bigger concern is how many snaps is Zeke Elliott going to play? because to me that determines the outcome of their season. Tony Pollard, they drafted great. They're going to work him in. He's going to get some touches. They want to be careful about overusing Zeke Elliott. Hey, you can't overuse Zeke Elliott. He's your best player. He better be on the field and not next to the coaching staff in every significant moment of every important game.
It struck me when I talked to Michael Gallup on Tuesday how much he talked about how Jason Garrett gave everybody, or Jason Witten, when they would come back to the huddle, would give all this advice. It led to me kind of half-jokingly asking Jason Witten about, was he sort of like a player coach? Because he has flirted with the idea of being a coach in the past. I can't help but sort of watch how he's behaving right now and watch his presence in the locker room and think that there's a chance he'll be on this coaching staff soon enough.
On it or leading it?
I think leading it could be a possibility.
I know, and we probably mentioned this when he came back from retirement, but I had somebody who's very close to Witten tell me that if you think Jerry Jones has a man crush on Tony Romo, what he has with Witten, the respect he has for Witten and the affection he has for Witten far exceeds that he possesses for Romo. And don't be surprised if 5 years from now, Jason Witten isn't the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. In 5 years may have been a little conservative, that number.
That's
think
expecting a lot out of Kellen Moore this year in terms of
I think,
Randall Cobb.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. We'll talk more about, Ed, this idea of how different this offense looks, because I got mixed messages on that one. I talked to at least one member of the coaching staff who had one thing to say, and then we heard some things from different players in terms of how the formations will look, what this offense, how much different will it look. You talked about some of these bunch formations. We'll talk about that, but I want us to get to, I thought we had a fascinating discussion with Travis Frederick, and we were wise enough to kind of sneak him around the back part of the locker room there, secure that interview, because he's a guy that I think people are wanting to talk to right now, a leader of this. Isn't that interesting? And I think you brought this up with him, that Witten's coming back after having a year away. He's coming back after not being, and those guys are looked at as leaders, but they weren't really around as much last season. He was sort of almost a coach. He wore a headset and tried to provide some feedback over on the sideline. But I thought we had a really good and a fascinating discussion with Travis Frederick, and I'm anxious to share it with our folks.
Well, and I think his return, you can't overestimate how important what he does is to them functioning as an offensive line. I don't think it's a mere coincidence that Dak Prescott suffered 58 sacks, the second most in the NFL last season, and the highest total in franchise history. Largely because Travis Frederick was out for the season. I mean, one of the things he does so well is call the game up front and really alleviates a lot of that from Dak. So this is his return, assuming it happens as everybody expects, but nobody really knows for certain. But assuming it gets back to where he was, he's going to remove a great burden off Dak Prescott in that regard. And the offensive line, assuming the players we mentioned earlier are healthy all year long, should begin to function as one of the better ones in the NFL and not as it did last year, which was one of the poorest ones in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think the return of Travis Frederick should have actually more of an impact on winning than even Jason Witten's return.
Or the acquisition of Randall Cobb.
True.
To me, the single most important thing that will happen to the Cowboys offense this offseason is the return of Travis Frederick.
And without further ado, here is our exclusive interview with one Travis Frederick, starting center for the Dallas Cowboys. Travis, how good does this feel? You've had OTAs with the minicamp and all. Is this all starting to feel real again? You've had to go through a lot of different steps. Where is this kind of in the whole scheme of things?
This is an interesting part of it because it's been this huge process coming back, but it's not unlike the process of a normal offseason in that you go from sometimes a period of inactivity to starting with some lifting, more rigorous lifting, then you go to running, then you go to OTAs, and you're going to mini camp, and then into training camp. So it's a similar process. This one's just been drawn out a little bit longer, and it's a good feeling to be back in doing some of that stuff. Yeah. It's really easy to rack up some rust and some time away, but it quickly comes back to you when you get a chance to go out and do some of those individual drills and get back doing your technique.
Where do you feel like you are physically in terms of making a full recovery?
It's really hard to say percentage-wise, just because you never really talk about baseline numbers in nerve conductions. So I feel really good about where I'm at right now, but I won't know anything about my ability to play football at a high level until we can put pads on and actually play football at a high level. In OTAs and training, or OTAs and mini camp, it's significantly different. You're not wearing any pads. We're moving quickly, but it's just not the same.
So what are you targeting as far as that? You sort of need to obviously see yourself in the preseason. Preseason may be even more important for you than ever. Is that kind of when you'll be all the way back? Is it when you can get into one of those games?
I think for me, it's just the process of training camp. The preseason games are what they are. Training camp is really about getting ready for the season, and things have shifted a little bit with training camp. It used to be about getting into shape, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. I think now it's really about getting back into playing form and having all of your techniques sort of perfected by the beginning of the season, so you're in quote-unquote mid-season form at the beginning of the season. So throughout that course of training camp, you're working through all the blocks, you're working through all the schemes, and just working through those with pads on at full speed. Those are the things I need to do.
You had never missed a game until this happened.
Correct.
And then you stayed fully engaged, though, at least to the best of your ability. Mm-hmm. I used to see you down there with a headset on, working with the offensive linemen. What was the benefit to you and to the team of you contributing in that way?
I think personally and selfishly, there was a lot of benefits for me. The fact that I could stay engaged and still feel like I was a little bit a part of the team was definitely great. When you're injured, you kind of get separated. Not purposefully. It's not that people don't want to spend any time with you. It's that they have a lot of other things to focus on besides being there for you. And my team was incredibly supportive, and my teammates were always checking on me and everything. But there's a lot going on there, so you just feel a little disconnect there. So by staying involved, it helped me stay closer with the guys and with that team. And I think that I was able to offer a little bit in return there. I think I could offer some expertise and some experience to some of the guys that hadn't had as many games and as many starts. So I think that was certainly helpful. But I think from a bigger picture standpoint, getting to see the game sort of through a coach's eyes and see it from a different vantage point was definitely helpful for me. When you're in the game, you're focused on your particular technique or exactly what you need to do against this guy. But when you can look at it from a bigger picture, it helps you realize what all is going on. And I think I can see it from a different vantage point now, even back in on the line.
Hopefully you get to play for 7 or 8 more years, but did it make you at least consider, hey, would I want to be a coach someday? Did that cross your mind at all, or is it most of the focus, hey, I'm trying to get myself back on the field?
I've always thought about coaching, but I don't think I could coach at a level like this. I really commend the coaches for the amount of time and effort that they put in, and I think it's a tremendous amount of sacrifice on their families. So for me, I think by the time that I get done, I'm not ready to sacrifice that much time with the family. I want to get back with them and just sort of use the other things that I've grown up doing and learned to do through my college career and everything, and try and get back into the real world.
It was an unusual season for the offensive line. Not only were you missing, Tyron Smith missed some time, Zach Martin even missed some time. You had a coaching change in the middle of the season with Paul Alexander getting fired. Hudson Howe came in and helped Mark Colombo in the transition. Now Mark Colombo is going to do it on his own. What's your take on him as an offensive line coach, being a former player?
I really enjoy the expertise that Coach Colombo brings in. I think that having been in there and been in recently, it really gives you a good feeling for what's going on in the game currently. You have guys that have played before, a long time before, that are playing, and they have a better vantage point sometimes than the guys that haven't played at all. So everything's just a little bit different, and you get a different side of coaching. And so I think at this point for me, I've had a little bit of everything. You're always looking for different tools for your toolbox. You're looking for different viewpoints on things. And so when you go from a guy like Coach Callahan to a guy like Coach Pollock, and now into a guy that's a little bit fresher out of the league with Colombo, you're just getting another new thing. It's not like you're getting all of the same types of coaches. So I think that's super beneficial for me, and I think he's done a really good job with the group and helping us get back to who we are and helping the young guys really come along and grow.
I have a leadership question for you, because last year when Jason Witten retired, one of the things you mentioned was that he had set guys like you and Zach Martin up to assume some of that. Where does that stand now, given that you missed a whole season and now he's back?
It's really no different. Witt's done a really good job of coming in and just fitting back into a role where everybody's comfortable with him at. It wasn't that, okay, hey, I'm going to come back in and I'm in charge of this team. And that's not necessarily the case. Things transitioned a little bit last year in the leadership roles, where it was less about one or two guys being the head or the leaders of the team, and more so about a group of guys that were doing that. And so when he comes back and joins that group, it's a very natural transition for us back into that space, and he just brings a lot more of that experience and things that we can lean back on that a lot of us have never seen.
What's the biggest difference with Kellen Moore as OC that you've been able to tell? Is it pre-snap motion, more of that? What's the biggest change that you've been able to see so far?
I think there's several things that are different, but there's a lot that's the same. And I think there's a sort of freshness about it. He looks at the game just a little bit differently, and I really appreciate the way he looks at the game, because I think that I see it in a similar way that he does. So just the way he organizes things and the way that the plays are called and some of the different movements that he's got going on and a couple of schemes that he wants to bring in and do, it's just fresh and it's new, and but still holds on to the convictions that we believe in as the Dallas Cowboys. So I think it's a really good meld, and I'm excited to see him grow in that role.
To that point, Dak's being coached by a guy who's a real technician, who really emphasizes, proper mechanics in John Kitna, the new quarterbacks coach. It seems like we're seeing a guy at quarterback who's impressing now in practice, executing in practice, in terms of accuracy at a level we haven't seen before. He's always been a gamer, but he hasn't always been a guy who's been real impressive in practice. Do you see improvement in that regard now, and to what do you attribute it?
I'd say it's hard for me to judge quarterback position just because I don't spend a lot of time watching where the ball's thrown and how it's thrown. But I do see a higher level of confidence. He's always been a guy that is extremely confident in what he's doing, believes in what he's doing, and knows that he knows, and that's always a good thing. But I think he's even taken a step up from there, where he really understands it, and I think with Coach Moore coming in and really working with him through this offseason as things are getting installed and as he's designing the offense, I think that he has a better, fuller understanding of the offense and scheme in the big picture. So I think he feels really comfortable where he's at, and I think that is better. In my opinion, once you get to this level in this game, there's a lot of skill involved, but everybody's skilled, right? And there's a lot of people that are working really hard and really strong. Well, pretty much everybody's that way. A lot of it comes down to your ability to be confident and know that you can execute and know that you can face adversity and come out of that. And you've certainly seen both of those with that.
And you've done that yourself now, a year into this recovery from Guillain-Barré syndrome. Did you ever, or do you now, doubt whether you can make a full and complete comeback?
I don't doubt it. I would say at this point I can't confirm it. I think is the best way to put it. I just try to be really realistic about it and know that it's a really serious thing, and my body's been through a lot, and I believe that things have progressed in a positive way and perhaps even better than I had hoped, 4 months ago even. But I can't tell you right now that I'm 100% and the best that I'll ever be. Ask me during training camp, I might be able to tell you a little bit more. But I'm just excited that I get a chance to go out and approach training camp from a normal standpoint.
So that people understand what you've been through, what was kind of your physical state at the lowest point?
There was times for me that, you guys understand it's probably a 200-yard walk to the lunchroom from here. There was times where I didn't go to eat lunch because it was too hard for me to walk from the locker room to the lunchroom. My muscles couldn't stabilize when I was walking, so it was difficult to walk, and I get really tired very quickly. And it's funny, you don't notice and you you don't think about it when you're normal walking around a slight elevation, but when you take a slight elevation at that point where you're not stabilizing, it's really, really difficult to walk up a hill that's like 6 inches over 100 yards. It's really amazing, and so you notice those things so much more. And so in the weight room, everything was a struggle. We pushed and we did everything we could. Getting up and down, going down, up and down stairs was really, really hard. Picking up kids, it was pretty dark there for a minute, but luckily I never had any issues in my respiratory system, and luckily I was always able to stay on my feet. I never got to the point where I couldn't walk, because once you get to that point, your body has to you have to reteach it yourself how to walk. So I got really lucky in that regard, and the fact that I had such tremendous medical care here, both with my training staff and our doctors, but my neurologist as well. I was really, really fortunate.
It took a couple visits to the doctors, specialists, for you to get diagnosed. But even, I think what you're saying is you were fortunate that it was diagnosed when it was, correct? Because most people who have that are diagnosed after it affects the respiratory. Most times they're on a ventilator before it's even diagnosed.
Yeah, it can go downhill really quickly. And I think one of the best things I had going for me was that I was in the best shape that I've ever been in my life, going into a training camp. And so it took longer for it to take more of my strength away and things like that. But based on that timeline, another week and I probably wouldn't have been walking and potentially not breathing. So you really got to catch those things early. And like I said, I was really fortunate. There's a lot of people out there that get this and things move really quickly, or they don't have access to trainers and doctors every single day that I can be on them saying, hey, listen, I don't have feeling in my feet. I can't feel the ball in my hands. What's going on here? I'm getting these weird symptoms that we can't explain. And that was what was, ultimately able to keep me upright.
What was the strangest therapy that you did? Did you try cryotherapy? Was there anything I'm sure people were giving you ideas out of left field. What was the most interesting thing that you tried? Or was there anything that really helped more than other things?
I did get a ton of suggestions. Everybody's reaching out trying to tell me about their medical expertise. Yeah. But in any neurologist that I talk to, and anyone that knows this, physiology of it, basically the nerve that broke down can't be rebuilt by any artificial means or any outside treatment. Your body just has to do that. And the best thing you can do is provide your body with the nutrients to be able to do that and rest. And so after I received the treatment to actually treat the autoimmune part that was attacking that was a course of 5 days. Once that's over, then you just have to sit and wait. And that's what all that time was just, I was quote-unquote cured from Guillain-Barré itself. It was just recovering from the effects of it.
Wow, what a journey this has been.
Yes, Doomsday podcast. I think what kept you going, Travis, was probably just the thought of maybe being on this podcast someday. I mean, did that probably spurred you on a little bit, right?
It's always exciting when I get a chance to talk with, high-level journalists and be on a podcast that's broadcast to thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people.
Yeah, keep going. Well said. Well said.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good
Glad
to see
to
you.
have you back.
Yeah, very good to have you back. There he was, Travis Frederick. Just seemed it was really engaging, and it was good to visit with him, and I think it did mean the world to him to be on the Doomsday podcast. And Ed, you've been kind of working your league-wide sources, but there's one thing in particular. There's one player that you talked to that really can shine a light on just how important Travis Frederick is to this offense and what his absence meant.
Yeah, Damon Harrison, Snacks, we like to call him, obviously a big defensive tackle who played against Travis Frederick for many years, twice a year when he was with the New York Giants. Now he's with the Detroit Lions, got traded during last season. But I reached out to him when Frederick got hurt or when this disease was discovered and he was placed on IR to get a sense of the context of his absence. And he said, there are plays in the running game that the Cowboys really lean on that only work because Travis Frederick has the unique ability to make certain blocks, to get to certain places on the second level and make a block that most centers can't make. And he said, really, with any other team, given how Dallas relies on Zeke in the running game, this is the equivalent of any other team losing a skill position starter. And when I mentioned that after the interview today to Travis Frederick, he said, Snacks reached out to him almost right away when it was learned that he was going to miss the entire season. And the level of mutual respect between the two is such that not only does that occur, but Frederick said Snacks is the guy that I always measured my season by. How was I able to handle him? He's the toughest guy that I have to block in the entire league on a regular basis.
That is very interesting, and Snacks is a big time player in this league, and interesting that the Giants and trying to start whatever the next phase is, some of the guys that they decided to trade and move on from. It is the Doomsday podcast, and it is our special mandatory mini camp. This is a mandatory podcast. It is. We were in the middle of this.
I came back from Colorado for that very reason.
You have flown back in from the gorgeous, although it's pretty here too.
Usually I say, "What do voluntary mean?" and I don't come back. But you said this was mandatory, so here I am.
That was the famous Darren Hambrick line. What do voluntary mean? That with the Cowboys back in that would have been out at Valley Ranch when Darren Hambrick had that to say. As we continue to cover a lot of this camp, there was one other interview that Ed, as you were kind of making your way back from Colorado, that I had a chance to do, and it was with Michael Gallup. We'll get to it in a minute, but I wanted to visit with you about this idea of how much different is this offense going to look? Because in some ways, this is window dressing. I mean, you talked about the bunch set. You talked about you seeing some, three receivers lined up on the same side of the field. The Cowboys I think the formations are going to look different. I think there's going to be more motion. I think there's going to be some pre-snap magic. That kind of Sean McVay stuff. I think that's what Jerry said. Get me some of those McVay plays. But the bottom line is, as a coach made clear to me today, the plays themselves, I mean, they may be disguised differently, but the plays themselves are not going to be different. This is still the Cowboys' offense. This is a lot of what Linehan was calling over these last few years. It's not like they're going to throw a whole bunch of plays. They're just going to disguise these things differently. So I don't think if people have it in their mind, Kellen's going to go crazy, rewrite this playbook, it's going to look crazy, air raid, we're going to air raid this thing up like Kingsbury. That's not happening. It's just going to hopefully, they're trying to keep these defenses on their heels a little bit more. They felt like they were too predictable.
Yeah, well, when you talk to coaches around the NFL, I was talking to John Fox recently, who's a former, head coach, obviously, with the Chicago Bears, Denver Broncos, Carolina Panthers, and a defensive coordinator, for a long time with the Giants. And he was making the point that the biggest thing you have to your advantage on offense on first and second down is you've got to create uncertainty with the defense about whether you're going to run or you're going to pass. The reason defenses are so good on third down is because that question is answered for them. They generally know which you have to do to get another set of downs. So first and second downs, you have to create disguise so that the defense doesn't know if you're going to throw the football or you're going to run the football. Dallas is trying to do this in an era where every advantage goes to the offense, especially in the passing game. The Cowboys are trying to win with defense and the run game. Like, that's not how it's drawn up. That's not how it's easiest in the NFL to succeed. Those are the two things that have been punished or de-emphasized the most. And not only that, but the Cowboys are entering this window now where anytime Dak Prescott's going to become a very highly paid quarterback in the NFL, at what level we're not sure yet, and maybe we'll discuss this further. But they missed the window to take advantage of having a running back and a quarterback on their first contracts. And so now they're going to try and accomplish things with the same cast of players who haven't accomplished the things that they set out to do to this point. And now they have to do it with the same players, costing them a lot more money in the very near future.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of remarkable to see how they're going to go about this. The thing that strikes me is, and you and I hit on it when we got out to training camp last year, one of the worries with this Cowboys team was they last year they went into it with just not much clarity at the wide receiver position. They had to go ahead and spend a first-round pick to cover up that problem. That's one of the reasons Scott Linehan is no longer here, because it was, whether he's to blame or not, he sort of allowed that to happen, to go into a season.
I don't know that he allowed that to happen.
Well, no. He. I'm just saying, I think he was the one saying, no, we're okay.
And I know that when they made the trade for Amari Cooper, I think his position on that was it was absolutely needed and something that should have been done earlier, that the Cowboys have a history of not going out and getting offensive players, not drafting offensive skill position players in recent years. They've committed to the defense to the detriment of the offense. So I doubt that he wanted to go into the season without Jason Witten and without Dez Bryant and with no viable replacement at either position. I think that position was publicly forced on him by the people who made those decisions, which are Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and Will McClay.
But I certainly never sensed that he was fighting to keep Dez Bryant.
Well, maybe Dez Bryant's not the right guy. I mean,
okay, I'm just saying, we may agree to disagree on that one, because I think I think there was some thought that Beasley and Alan Hearns and who else, somehow they were going to
Thompson.
Yeah, they were going to move all these guys around. The kid,
which
the
they
guy
didn't
from
do.
Buffalo, and it just didn't. They asked Scott to go do on this college search. Go talk to these college coaches, and I'm not sure.
Do what they do.
Yeah, I'm not sure Scott really came back and did all that. He might have tried. He might have talked to somebody. This is going to be different. But what strikes me, and why I brought this up, Gallup, Amari Cooper was talking today. Alan Hearns was talking yesterday. Now they were in a situation last year where it was like, can Alan Hearns take up some of Dez? Can he kind of take Dez's place? Well, that's ludicrous. We kind of said that at the time. But now Alan Hearns is what Alan Hearns should be, a complementary type player.
A 3 or a 4.
Gallup, Cooper,
Cobb.
Randall, Cobb. This is to me, there's so much more firepower heading into this season, and that hopefully, I would think for the Cowboys, that they're hoping that opens things up for Zeke.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I think Cole Beasley, I think he had a point about being misused, and I think there were too many games where, given what a great mismatch player he could be in the slot, that there were too many games where he didn't get the ball enough, or he didn't get the ball until he couldn't affect the outcome of the game, and then they would feed it to him to try to come back. That being said, him leaving for Buffalo, I think the Cowboys have more than replaced him with Randall Cobb. I think Randall Cobb is going to be a much better, more productive player in his role in this offense than Cole Beasley ever got an opportunity to be or could be.
Randall Cobb, who told us yesterday after the interview that he was trying to get back here from Green Bay or Milwaukee, wherever he was up in Packers land, and was flying to Dallas Sunday when all that weather was hitting. From Green Bay land, he was on the tarmac. He was out on the in the plane for 3.5 hours, and then they got to Dallas finally. Was out there on the runway on the tarmac for another hour and a half, and in total about 5 hours he spent, and then he dropped the really concerning news. All of that while he had his 7-month-old child with him. Can you imagine that?
I wouldn't want to be
scene?
him or sitting next to him.
No, I know, but you're a guy that's been patient with airlines, and so
and children.
Children. That's right.
I do put up with you.
You would have not. Oh my goodness, you would have never tweeted. You would have tweeted about that. But I think Randall Cobb is going to be. I think he's going to be really good. Real quick, I did want to hear from. This is my interview that I did on Tuesday with Michael Gallup. Did you learn anything from Beasley when he was here? Obviously he had a nice long 7-year run here.
Oh yeah, Beasley. Me and Beasley were like, two peas in a pot. He was a good friend to me. He was always helping me out if I didn't know a play when we were on the field. He always let me know what I had. But definitely gonna miss Bees. I hope he does, what he's supposed to do down there.
Was he one of your favorite rap artists?
I don't know about that. I don't know if he was one of my favorites. I definitely listened to him, but I don't know if he's one of my favorites.
What do you expect for yourself in the second year?
Expect for myself? I mean, I just expect for every time we turn on the film, it's something good and not anything bad. That's what I expect. But we'll definitely see.
How much better do you feel in the offense in your second year?
Oh, I feel a lot better. I can go out there. I don't have to turn around and look at Coach Sanjay or anything like that. I just, play my game, and I'm actually sometimes telling other people what they have. So now I feel even better about myself. But it's definitely been going good for me.
Can you talk about the creative mindset of having Kellen Moore, younger guys, the OC, and then bringing in John Kitna? I mean, what have you seen? I guess how have you seen this offense evolve? With bringing them both on board.
I mean, it's definitely fun. Kellen, he's thinking like us. He was here not too long ago. And then also, he was up there at Boise, and at Boise they ran a bunch of, tricks or stuff like that. He made it flavorful for everybody. So definitely having Kellen, just closer around to our age group. So he knows what we're feeling, knows what we're thinking, knows what we're good at. And it's definitely been fun.
Do you find yourself moving around a little bit more, almost having to learn more routes or more positions in a sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Kellen, he wants everybody on the ball, but he wants everybody to know, each position. So, if we ever, was in turbo or anything like that, you just get on the ball and you go, and you're supposed to know what you're doing. So that's how he played when, he was playing. So he's trying to incorporate it for us. So
you feel like it's a little more fun in some ways?
Oh, yeah. You can just line up and go. The DBs don't know how to guard that because they were like, I had him, but now I got to go get him, something like that. So it's just different for everybody to see our formations and stuff like that.
What does it mean to see Allen back on the field, Joe?
That's a blessing right there. For him to make that recovery that quick, be out there running, cutting, and doing what he's doing right now, that's a blessing. We all definitely appreciate what Alan Hearns does for us, and I enjoy seeing him out there because that's my big brother. So hopefully he gets to do what he wants to do, and he has a good year.
In what ways is he your big brother? Just did he kind of take you under your wing last year?
Always, definitely. Anytime I needed help, anytime I had a question, I was always asking Hearns what it was, and he would give me the answer. He would find out for me.
How quick did you go to the hospital to visit him? Were you there the night after?
I was there the next day. Because I had, my mom and all them were in town, but I was there the next morning.
How are his spirits then?
I mean, his spirits, they were as high as they could be. It's always tough when you had to have surgery. I had the same thing, so it's definitely tough. But
you did the same thing?
Not exactly the same. I had surgery on my ankle.
Gotcha.
But, it's definitely tough. So for him to do what he's doing now and coming back to us like that, it's a blessing.
What was your first impression of Randall Cobb?
First impression of Randall Cobb? He's smart. That was my first impression. Randall Cobb is a smart, savvy football player.
Once you had that first impression, was your thought that there's a guy I'm going to be learning from?
Of course. He's been in the league for a long time. Got to play with one of the best. Aaron Rodgers back there, quarterback, telling him stuff. I definitely try to pick his brain and stuff like that. But it's good.
What have you? I'm sorry, Scholar. What have you done to even get closer to Dak? Obviously, it's so important to be on the same page with Dak. What do you think is the most important thing in you guys sort of growing, evolving relationship?
Definitely just communication. Like he had said earlier.
You gotta go, boy. You gonna let them boys have you over here, boy?
You done?
You gotta go eat, boy. Don't be afraid. Tell them boys you gotta go eat.
I got you, T. I got you. But just really communication. Going back and talking to him when even if the ball didn't come to me, or if the ball did come to me, just going and asking him what he was thinking right there, what he was really feeling, if I need to sit it down, if I need to keep going through. Because when you think like he's thinking, then, it's a little bit easier for you. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And that was Michael Gallup from the Cowboys mini camp. And Ed, there was some big news this past week in the quarterback ranks. Russell Wilson had announced his deal from Bed, he and his wife there, and Wentz did not go this route, but Carson Wentz with another enormous deal. He and Russell Wilson will essentially make about the same, about $32 million a year is how it'll come out.
And the guarantees are very similar.
Guarantees are very similar, like $107 million or somewhere in there. What do you think Dak was thinking as he saw that Wentz news? He certainly won more games than Wentz, even if he probably doesn't have the same arm talent and is not to believe to maybe have the ceiling that Wentz does. Had to be a pretty good day for Dak as well as Carson Wentz.
Well, I think that the Eagles have always been a far more proactive team in this regard than are the Cowboys. I think Jerry and Steven, they get things done. They don't lose players over money if they truly want them. But this is definitely detrimental to the team's cause because their argument previously has been, well, Russell Wilson got paid, but Russell Wilson's won a Super Bowl and been to another. That's not what Dak has accomplished. Well, now Dak can say, well, Carson Wentz got the same money, and he hasn't done what I've done, which is I've been to the playoffs. I've won in the playoffs. I've helped the Cowboys win 2 division championships in my 3 years as a starter, and I've done it while being one of the lowest paid players, starting players at any position in the entire NFL. So I think the Cowboys are going to suffer the consequences of the Eagles signing Carson Wentz before the Cowboys signed a quarterback taken 3 rounds later in the very same draft class.
I think the Cowboys could use that to their advantage, though. I think they could say, we get that Wentz hasn't done that, so we're going to give you Nick Foles money.
Well, that'd probably be okay, too, compared to where he is now.
Oh, compared to where he is, but Foles didn't quite get the deal, obviously, that Dak is seeking, and Dak's looking in there for about $30 million a year. Ed, as the practice was ending today, coaches walking off the field, I know you spent a little time with, the old Cowboys backup quarterback, former Bengal quarterback, former Seahawk quarterback, John Kitna, now the Cowboys quarterback's coach. What did you learn from him? Did he shed any light on this kind of scary backup situation the Cowboys have?
It's interesting. The Cowboys are an organization that on the field is run by 3 backup quarterbacks, right? In Jason Garrett, John Kitna, and Kellen Moore, and yet they don't have a backup quarterback. Unless one of those 3 is going to play. Anyway, Kid is an interesting guy because I think he provides for the first time, like I said earlier, Dak with a guy who's a real, mechanics-oriented or at least a mechanics-minded coach. And he was talking today about the importance of right foot, left shoulder, all that. And then he was asked about what kind of jump he expects Dak to make in his 4th year, and he said, the guy's been really good for 3 years. I mean, I'm not expecting a huge jump. You're just looking for any way to help him improve, and that's my job, is to help him find ways. And he's one of these guys, Kitten described him as Tom Brady was once described to me. I'm not comparing Tom Brady and Dak Prescott, Twitter. But one of the things they're consistent with in terms of their personality is Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator in New England, once told me, "Hey, you know what? Tom Brady, he wants you to challenge him. He wants to learn something from you in every meeting he attends. Mm-hmm. And if you can't do that, he has no use for you." And it kind of sounds like that's the way Dak is with the coaching staff over there. That he wants them to bring ways for him to improve on a daily basis. And Kitna said, hey, it's rare when you can find tape where he went to the wrong place with the football. And he said, as to where he is at this point in his career, he said, most guys, the game kind of slows down and it becomes more natural and reactionary for the quarterback. In years 3 or 4, he said, it really thought, looking at the film, that happened for Dak in the second half of last year.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, and we also talked to Jason Witten on Wednesday, just right before taping this, and I thought he had some great things to say about Dak, just in terms of the velocity on the ball. I think from you think about it, Witten retired, so he didn't get that 3rd year of Dak in, coming back for his 4th year. I think Dak will love having Witten out there, just having that kind of veteran presence with him in the huddle. But I think Jason is extremely impressed, has always been, but I think from what we could gather today, he's really pleased at Dak's progress, and he's a good guy to talk to because he's had a little bit of time away. Now he's come back, and he seems to think that Dak has made definite strides.
I will never forget going out to the Star before Dak started his first game in the NFL, right after Tony Romo got hurt his back. Obviously, the Cowboys had believed that Romo would be their starter at the beginning of the 2016 season. And the previous year, they were 1-11 in games that Romo didn't start. Total futility without Romo in the lineup. And I went out and I asked Witten, I said, so what makes you think that this team's going to be any better or better equipped to win games without Romo than it was last year? And he said, this guy, Dak, he does it all the right way. It's real. This is really who the guy is, he said. And you got a real sense that, he said, we may have kind of panicked when we've lost Tony in the past. That's not going to happen this time. And our belief in Dak is a big part of that. And when you think about what Dak did in his first year, the most amazing thing to me is not so much the games that he won, but the fact that he won the locker room and everybody in the organization, except for Jerry Jones, won them over to his side against a quarterback in Tony Romo who set all kinds of Cowboys passing records. It was one of the great passers really in history. Had won a lot of games with these very same group of players, and yet they swore their allegiance to a rookie quarterback over a 10-year veteran. And that's really ultimately the reason Romo never got his job back. Because of that and the fact that they won 11 straight games with Dak as a quarterback.
Yep, and who can forget? Tony obviously had reached out to me and wanted to be on this podcast, but when he was honored at the first time back to broadcast a Cowboys game, and you had some unkind words.
I just said something like they never did this for Troy Aikman when he came back to broadcast his first game. I think he won 3 Super Bowls.
And Tony said, no, I'm not doing the Doomsday podcast, and let it be known. Ed, good work today. Always fun to see you. Glad you came back in from Colorado for this. It is the Cowboys mini camp. We're not saying goodbye forever, but we will be at training camp. And that's going to be exciting. Yeah.
All the bills are going to be paid.
The dates are. I always pay the bills. No, let's not push too hard. This isn't Bristol.
You don't get it if you don't ask. Baby.
That's true. But we'll be with you throughout training camp. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to Mark Friedman. Good to see him.
Got him off the golf course.
Yeah, he's done a good job. He's been doing some good work out at Top Golf, working on his game a little bit and that kind of thing. And thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Great to have you here. And I'll look forward to another season of the Doomsday podcast. Say goodnight, Ed.
Good night, Ed.
Shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.